I brought my very fancy rhinestone microphone with me. It's a DIY setup. If you are not an iCology member, you may have never seen this before. All three of these women have seen this before. It's completely unfunctional, dysfunctional, non-functioning, whatever. But I made it myself during COVID because I really wanted a rhinestone microphone. I wanted to be like Carrie Underwood. So here we are, and I'm using it because it's a power move, and it's the exact opposite of AI. It is an analog microphone in every way. So love having everyone. I'm seeing the chat blow up. This is fantastic. Would love to know. Here's what we're going to start with. Brenton did great intros. We're going to start with a little lay of the land, wild, wild west land, because I think it would be helpful for everyone who is attending to know a little bit more about each of our panelists and how they're using AI. I am with iCology and self-employed, therefore I get to use AI however the heck I want to. And I am admittedly not the most tech savvy person, hence the microphone. So most of my AI usage is around, platforms like Eventbrite and letting it do its magic and let me see what you got come up with, or ChatGPT, hey, can you create a description for this event? Things like that. Pretty basic usage, helpful, but basic. So would love to know in the chat if there is any way, if you are using AI, let us know how you're using it. And we're going to start with our panelists to let everyone know, get a little bit of feel for how you are currently using AI, if you are. And if you're not, that's okay too, because we're going to have that conversation as well. So who, hands up from our panelists, who is the most excited to start? All of you. Amazing. That's what I thought. Kristin, why don't you, since you're the MVP of the day, why don't we start with you? Give us a little overview of how you are or are not using AI.
MVP title before I even said anything.
Incredible.
Right?
And it's only Wednesday.
Yeah, there you go. Well, so I work for an architecture, engineering, and construction firm, and we have employees all over North America. And by the nature of our business, we are all about innovation, right? We're design builders. We design the infrastructure that you all use every day. And so I've been very fortunate because our organization has really embraced this as an innovation from the beginning. And we are using it in a lot of different aspects. But we were one of the first firms to start with the GPT Enterprise. So we've been using that. I've been using that for almost a year now, and recently started pilot testing more on the Copilot front of things. And also, we've been using it across our larger marketing and communications group for visual design and things like that as well. So we've been kind of looking at it across all different aspects, really trying to see what is going to make the most sense for us to use it for. I have really dove in with 2 feet and started using it for everything from content writing to editing to brainstorming. I found it incredibly helpful when you have pulse surveys to go in and use the information within ChatGPT to help you look at your results and really help you get some sentiment analysis out of it. I've used it for employee persona development and change communications. So lots of different things. I joke all the time with people I work with, it's become like my personal assistant. So I'm using it that much that when I have to think about doing something and it takes me a little bit too long to think about doing something, I'm going to ChatGPT and I'm saying, hey, can you help me start thinking through things, right? Help me be a thought partner with this, help me start the process, and it expedites my work significantly.
That's awesome. I'm hearing a lot about Copilot too. And I, for the most part, have heard really great things about it. So, I mean, it's Microsoft. We all know. It's just the way it is. But Bella, how are you using AI right now at work, if at all?
Hi, everyone. I'm Bella, and I work at ResultsCX, and the company is a global company spread in 6 different countries. So my direct manager, she's in a completely different time zone than I am. So we have just a short time together in the morning, and we brainstorm and we use as best as we can that period. But I'm going to tell you, ChatGPT is my personal assistant. I brainstorm. Sometimes we're not creative all the time. Sometimes we have some blocks. So sometimes I need someone to brainstorm with, and ChatGPT is always there for me.
That's like a tagline. ChatGPT is always there for me.
That's a great one, right?
That's awesome. I see a lot of people in the chat throwing out names of places, or sorry, names of software for AI software that they're using, which is really cool. And every time we have this conversation, I learn about a new tool that's available. So these are the types of events where you can share all those things with your peers. So please keep using the chat to let everyone know what you're using and if you like it or not, like an honest review of things. Shauna, I would love to hear from you because I know that you are using AI in, I don't want to say a unique way, but in a very all-inclusive kind of way. Can you tell us a little bit more about how AI is forming your role or supporting your role?
Well, our team uses it in a variety of different ways. There's obviously the time savings that Kristin mentioned, summarizing lengthy messages to make sure that you have some TLDRs to hand out, having AI review an email to make sure it's actually hitting the key points that you want it to hit, using it for brainstorming for icebreakers and other fun activities. Most recently this week, we used it to, we have an internal employee resource group that's for people with neurodivergence and other challenges, and we used it to start generating a list of tips for working with neurodivergent people in the workplace. That was very rough
Cool.
draft, but
That's
it was really cool to see like the quality that it came through with that, because if it only takes a few minutes, then there's really no point in not having that inclusivity and that knowledge to share. So
okay, tell us more about that, because I love the intersection of this AI and DEI. Like, how did this come about, and how, like, what are the logistics of how you actually used it for that?
Well, the group itself is largely, I would argue, largely ADHD and autistic folks. So we get down a path, right? And we're like, okay, how do I figure this out? And someone started that path, and we all went, ooh. So I threw out, there are the AI options, but essentially, I think it's just one of the many ways you can use it to look at something and say, wow, that could take me hours to pull that information together. And so therefore you never get to it, right? Because there's always something more important. But in this case, you can get into those like smaller pockets that provide value, but maybe aren't as important from a strategitic perspective. So you can actually, it's like you can do more and be in more places in a helpful and inclusive way.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's, I also have used it for making sure that we have a version of important content for each learning style. Because if you're creating a recording, you need to have a script, a transcript, you need to have a summary based on that transcript, you need to have visuals that people can understand and descriptions around those visuals as well.
That's a great tip and takeaway for everyone who's here, is using AI to create different versions of learning based on learning styles and capabilities. That's a great use of AI from a DEI perspective. Now, Shauna, you're at GoDaddy, and you would say that your company has been an early adopter. Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay.
We tend to be in general with a lot of things. So people just get excited and jump in. So,
and I think that it might be, I'm going to use the word easy. I feel like it might be easy for people to make the jump. Like, well, GoDaddy's a tech company. Of course, they're going to be at the forefront, or they should be at the forefront of these kinds of tech updates. But we also know that tech has to play within regulation, and it's also a large company. There's bureaucracy at all large companies and things like that. Mm-hmm. What did some of the very early stages of AI look like for you at GoDaddy?
I think this is probably common across companies, regardless of their industry. The way that AI is evolving affects every department in a little bit of a different way, and all the different technology that's becoming available. And a lot of it happened really quickly for a lot of people. One of the things that was lucky for our organization was that there was one person managing security and AI comms.
Okay.
Me.
That's
at
you.
That time. So I was looking at it from both lenses and going, okay, we got to get our arms wrapped around this. And so it ended up being a lot of cat herding. But it, in a good way. Like it's not like the cats were doing something wrong. They were all just going. And I think that's kind of what everyone's dealing with, just at different paces.
Yep. Totally. There are 700,000 questions coming through, which does not surprise me. So here's what we're going to do. And there's this upvoting feature with, I know we've all been using this all day. The most voted, thank you, Hadley, is about policies around AI. And guess what? We had this as a topic of conversation already planned. So because we get to do whatever we want on these things, we're going to just jump ahead and talk about that too. Because what Shauna just said really fuels nicely into this conversation about policies. Here is an interesting statistic that I'm bringing into this conversation. But there was a Gallup poll not long ago where only 6% of employees say that they felt comfortable using AI, and 32% are openly uncomfortable with it. Fair, no judgment. We're in the nest. There's no shame. There's no judgment here. The same research also showed that only 15% of employees said that their organization has a clear plan for integrating AI. So the flip of that is that there is a wildly high percentage of companies who do not have policies for using AI, and therefore their employees are uncomfortable using it because we're not sure where we're supposed to use it, how we can use it, all of these things. There's also another question, this fuels this question too. A couple people have asked about getting blocked, like they can't use ChatGPT, for example, for confidentiality reasons. So what are the workarounds, if any, and how are we using this? So Kristin, I'm going to go to you first because your professional services firm is using AI in a lot of ways. And is the enterprise version of ChatGPT, is that how you're getting around some of that? And what policies are in place for it?
Yes, so we do have an AI policy. We do have a lot of information around it. And I will say, for those of you who are looking to do this in a more highly regulated industry, start with your IT department and your cybersecurity people. That's how we started with ours. Our innovation director worked directly with our cybersecurity team and said, okay, let's start with the thing that we know is going to be the hardest thing to get past, which is the security side of things, right? So let's start with that. And then let's go from there. Let's build our policies around that. Let's build out from there. So they have built a policy. There are client correspondence templates out there for our employees to use if they are working with clients and the clients say, hey, I'm really worried about whether or not your company uses AI. What can you tell me about your use? What can you tell me about the security that you have in place? So we have all that documented. We have it all up on a SharePoint site that employees can go out and find and use. And so that's been really helpful to be really, I think, open about that and very upfront about here's exactly what kind of security standards we're using. Here's the state guidelines and policy. California has a different policy about use than other states do, for example, just within the United States. So I think having all of that upfront has been really helpful for us to smooth the way through the organization for use, not just internally for our use, but also looking at it for use on client projects and other things like that.
That's really interesting. You I'll be curious now, because you and Shauna both have work sanctioned, so to speak, AI tools that you can use. Bella, are there tools at your work that are work sanctioned, so to speak, or are you just making sure that you're not inputting any data into ChatGPT, for example?
In my work, I was very encouraged to use AI. Actually, I had this conversation with my manager in the beginning. I was like, I don't know if I feel comfortable, and she was like, you should use. It's the tool that is there for us to use, and we should take advantage of it. When I'm using ChatGPT, I do work very carefully to not include confidential information in there. So I always change for other names or things like that. But we do have like some other tools that we provide for our clients. They're like chatbots and stuff like that we use in the company actively. But when it comes to internal communications, I'm very, very, very careful when I'm sharing company information on ChatGPT. But I do know also we have a creative services team that support us, that if they need help too, they also use like AI generated images. That also is very helpful.
I'm curious for any of you on the panel, and just jump in. What advice would you have for someone who truly can't use, like, the ChatGPT is blocked at work, so it's not even a matter of don't input sensitive information. It's like you can't access it all. Where would you start? Kristin, you mentioned IT, but I'm curious for all three of you, where would you start having those conversations or building the case for being able to use AI and AI tools at work?
I would argue it's in almost every program anymore, right? So it's really hard to find something that doesn't have AI built in. I mean, I think about Grammarly, for example. We've been using Grammarly for probably 5 years. Now Grammarly has an AI component built in. Canva now has an AI component built in. So you look at all these applications and you say, it's not just ChatGPT. There's a lot more out there than that. And obviously, you know, I'm a huge fan of GPT Enterprise. I'll be the first one to tell you that. That's my personal assistant. That's what I use every day. But there are a lot of tools out there. And I think it's going to be harder and harder for companies to draw the line between what is AI and what is not AI, because it's becoming so integrated with all those different programs that we use.
Shauna, I'm going to call on you for this one too. And I know that your situation maybe is a little bit different because you have tools that you've built at your organization. But who were the players at work who were involved in those conversations that for people who are like, I want to get something started, whether it's just even just an appetite for using a tool like this, who needs to be in that conversation?
So I would argue that there were three tracks happening. There is the team that is our IT team, because they are the ones that hold the keys to the kingdom. They're the ones deciding whether to turn on AI and all the different applications that we already have, because those were and are still being actively rolled out and improved upon. And they get to say whether we use them or not, which is why there's people that have ChatGPT completely blocked on their machine, right?
Right.
So that's the conversation. That's one of the conversations. The other conversation, so one blocker, possibly, another blocker is security. Security has to understand that if you don't provide an option, people are going to find an option and they're going to create risk inside of the organization. And there's a lot of data to prove that. So building a business case around the data related to security risk of people going around things, very powerful. And then of course, you got to find the people or person that are really supportive of AI and looking for the innovation, because what you're going to have is one side of the pendulum is going to be like, we got to go, we got to do it all. Let's do it all today. You got to find that person, and you got to get the other two in the room, and you all need to have a conversation. They probably don't get along, just fun fact, because they're also different and they're focused on different priorities. But once you get them together and start making a case for what the reality is, like if we don't create an option for our employees, just like if we don't tell them what's happening and give them a story, they're going to make up their own. They're going to find workarounds. They might put our company at risk. And we're also, meanwhile, handicapping innovation, handicapping increase in productivity. There's a lot of numbers around productivity gain around AI as well. So honestly, like the first thought I had with this question was, have you started your business case? Have you started gathering stats? Because there's quite a few out there.
You know, and this is interesting because what you're saying sounds a lot like every other conversation we have as internal communicators when we want to either use a tool or start a project or implement a new program or policy. That's on us then, and sometimes to be the mediators, but also, like you said, to build the business case. And I love what you said about, like, what is the risk of not doing this? What is the risk of not helping our employees or supporting our employees to use these tools? No different than if you have no mechanism for employees to have conversations at work, you know, an intranet or whatever that is, they're going to do it elsewhere. And that's when you get rogue Facebook groups and WhatsApp channels, and, you know, all these kinds of things. So yeah, great point. Like, not can we do this, but how can we do this? Carolyn was in the chat there pointing that out. It's awesome. Productivity gains, someone else is mentioning too. Thanks, Wendy. I am curious, a lot of the questions we're getting are about ethics in AI, which is a hot topic. I'm curious if any of the three of you have encountered any ethical issues using AI. I know I've experienced some, typically with images that I've asked it to create or you know, edit, things like that. I'm curious if the three of you have encountered any ethical issues using AI.
So far, not that I know of.
Okay.
But since we work with different countries, and sometimes we have AI generated image, we try to be really, really careful, because sometimes AI messed up the flags if we are using some country flags.
Oh, interesting.
And one time, well, not an ethic issue, but one of the flags was kind of upside down, and that is not the correct way to use because in the past that was
It is
usually
not.
very conflicted work.
No.
So that was an issue that we have. So like we try to make sure that we are being really careful, especially when it comes with images created by AI.
Interesting. And so who is responsible for those checks and balances?
We try to connect with the country leader and country like responsible person that is from that specific country. So they will help us say, hey, this is the best way to use it, or no, this is not a good way to use it.
And so there is still a human
process. Yes, a human
checking to say this makes sense, this doesn't, this is appropriate, this is not. Very interesting. Kristin and Shauna, I'm curious, do you have checks and balances in place from an ethical standpoint?
We've kind of had it, it's up to each person using it. It's part of our, I don't want to say your expectation when you get a license to those particular tools that you will use them ethically. I think we've run into some similar situations that you have with the image piece. Like we have a lot of photos of construction sites, for example, and our visual design community just did a little lunch and learn session a few weeks ago where they showed an image that AI wanted to complete the image because the image was only so big and they needed a bigger image for a proposal that they were working on, for example. And they said, okay, complete this image, right? And then they went out to Google Earth and they found an image of that site and they compared it, and what the AI wanted to put in looked like it should have just been a continuation of, the columns and the thing, the construction that was under each of those columns, that it should have just been a continuation of that. But oh, lo and behold, at column 4, it changed over and it was something completely different. So had they put that into a proposal and represented that as the site, obviously, if you work on that site or that site every day, you're going to go, oh, that's AI generated, right?
Yeah.
And that's not the actual site. So I think that goes to show, and we've had a lot of discussions about that there's the ethics behind it, but then there's also the check and balance of you do need that human touch to make sure that it's accurate. And that's not just on the design side, that's on obviously the content side as well. But I think that's something that we've been very cognizant of. And then also I know some of the sessions earlier today talked about, disclosures of when do you talk about when you use AI and when do you not, right? So we've been having those conversations as well.
That was going to be my follow-up question. Do you have a policy on disclosure?
We're working through it as we speak.
Okay. All right. Everyone's going to want to know the update like in a few months when you've got that going on. Bella and Shauna, or Shauna, I'll go to you first. Do you have policies on disclosures of making sure, whether it's internal or external, of when you've used AI to create something?
I don't think that we have a disclosure policy yet. I think that's a really good consideration. We do have policies around usage, and we do have some gatekeeping around data and privacy, just because of the incredible responsibility we have for the internet as a domain provider. That's something we've discussed with the team for sure, and I think there's some safeguards in place from an external perspective, but we haven't done anything internally. That's a really good call out.
Interesting. Bella, what about you? Do you have any disclosure statements or times where you have to designate and say, I used AI?
No, not yet. We are still not there yet, but that's a good call out, as Shauna mentioned.
Yeah, very interesting. I'll be curious if people in the chat have policies on disclosures, because we don't need to reinvent the wheel here, do we, folks? Panaki has a good reminder in the chat. Remember, AI is not necessarily giving you the right answer, but the answer it thinks you will like. That is a very good reminder for all of our AI usage. There was another question about ethics. Let me see if I get through to this too. Oh, we're on the Panaki train here. Here's the Panaki question. What would you or what should you not use AI for? Bella, what is an example? What is something, if you need to think about it, we'll go to some other people, but what is something you either would never use AI for, at least right now, or that you think we should not be using AI for?
That's a great question. I believe you cannot use 100% of the content. If you're brainstorming for content, you cannot use 100% of the content from an AI tool, because it's super easy to identify there was not a human person writing that. And it's funny because I was having a discussion with my husband recently, who is a different understanding. He was like, of course you cannot realize that it's from AI. I'm like, excuse me, you can easily see that it was not a human who wrote that.
Yeah.
So I think 100%, you cannot use 100% of the AI content. You have to put your touch and your thoughts and yeah.
Okay. So so we could use AI for everything, but not all of everything in some ways. That's I like that. Okay. Okay. All right. Kristin, what do you think?
I would say the visual side is still lacking a little bit.
Okay.
I'm waiting for the day where I can make a really great infographic using AI, and I have not yet found a tool that does it very well. And I think that that's something when we look at taking what we do and taking really complex information and breaking it down for people to easily understand, I think that becomes a challenge with some of the tools that are out there that just aren't quite there yet.
Yep.
You know, some better than others, I will say that, because I tried to make a map on ChatGPT the one time, and it literally said, give me a map in the United States, like showing the southeastern piece of it highlighted, and it gave me like a state name that was like Conforma and like 4 Floridas in this map. I mean, it was hilarious. So
that's really funny.
I do I'm keeping a list of AI bloopers that someday maybe we'll share, but
that's actually that's a fantastic.
Is real.
Yeah, it's an AI blooper. So, I love that.
I think you still need to be really careful with the visual side of things.
Okay, fair point. Someone was noting in the chat earlier that AI still doesn't know how to do hands, like human hands. In photos, they're always like gnarly, or there's like 6 fingers or something like that. Yeah, that's also true. Shauna, do you have any either rules or just gut checks on what you would not use AI for?
Yeah, I I can tell you that if you want to use it to inform your ghostwriting internally, it's relying so heavily on external public-facing content that it's going to give you a very marketing-ish version of any message that you want to share, or very academic, depending on the subject.
Interesting.
And so, like, obviously, you don't want to take that and hand it out over to like your chief something officer and say, "Here's your draft." But maybe you start with just the list, like, give me 5 topics that are important here in the summary. You can also use it to adjust reading level, which I think is fantastic.
Oh, that's a good use of it too.
Yeah, and then I learned that one the fun way last year, trying to do an end of year holiday message, and I was like, this isn't even remotely close to this person's voice. I don't even know where to start. I'm just going to start from scratch. So it was very off base. And then I would also not rely on AI for any proofreading or final product of any kind. I would treat it more of an ingredient. Like you like, so you get a bag of potatoes. There's always like one funky potato. That's what AI
is always one funky potato. Why is that?
And you like get the 3 or 4 really good ones. You're like, yeah, these are the ones for tonight. But the rest is good try, guys. I'm gonna compost you. Just like you take what's good and you leave the rest. And I think the more that we cycle through that, the more that things go out into the world, and it just continues to evolve and improve.
Yep, that's a great point. I see some people in the chat. Zane in the chat would like to make the argument that we shouldn't be using AI for images if we can gather photos of actual employees. That's a great tip that we can all feel like there's like an AI code of conduct. We can probably all agree to that. That's probably a better way to capture our employees and our workforces of actual photos instead of using AI for that. There's something else I was gonna talk about. What I want to get into is AI in our industry. Before that, I would love for each of you, and Shauna, we'll start with you here. What is a tip or a couple tips that you would share with people for writing prompts, or actually the logistics of using AI? What are some tips that people can take away? Say they're using a chat GPT or something like a chat GPT. What are the things that work well?
Well, I always recommend you say please and thank you because of the matrix. But
be
other
polite,
than that,
be polite to your robot overlords, people.
Yes, you never know when it'll benefit you down the road. I want to get the good pot.
Yeah, exactly.
So as far as writing prompts is concerned, I always include a reading level. I tend to go bold with my experts because I don't want to be the expert. I'm looking for expertise from somewhere else usually. I don't need AI for the things I know. So I'll say something like a PhD in paleontology, explain this to an 8th grade class. You know, obviously we're not talking about dinosaurs.
I wish we were, sort of. That would be cool. But yeah.
yeah, I mean, generally speaking, there's a time and a place.
Right.
Usually during team meetings that are just fun. But yeah, I'm a big fan of reading level. I'm a big fan of forcing it to keep bullets concise. It likes to give you bullets that are like 5 sentences. So you have to say like this much word count or this many sentences. And it just get real specific. Like, I think someone mentioned that we were agitated people pleasers in the chat, like AI
Oh,
is
that's
too, something like
funny.
that. I like, don't be a people pleaser with AI. It's your servant. Like, just tell it what you want and be as explicit and direct as you can, because it's not going to fill up in the gaps.
Yep.
So you need to give it the gaps.
Love it. Jared in the chat's got often have to reply back and say, make that shorter, please. And excellent use of manners, Jared. Well done. Bella, what are some of your tips for when you're using AI? Just some tangible tips people can take for prompting.
I think the key is being very, very specific. You can just say, hey, write a content about, I don't know, why it's important to have a fun day at work. But you can be more specific and say, hey, please act as a content manager working for a company with this size and help me to write a content for this specific topic. So if more specific you are, the better the result that you're going to have.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Kristin, tips and tricks for prompting?
I would echo everything that everyone else has said. I think telling it who you are, telling it what you're trying to do, telling
like,
it what
do
you're
you
trying
say,
to
hi, I'm Kristin.
I'm Kristin. I'm an internal communications manager. Here's what I'm trying to do. And I'm an internal communications manager for this company, right? And this company is of this size, has the type of, if you don't have that information already in your system, right? So we've started to get to the point where we can build, like I said, employee personas where I can say, this is going out to this particular group. What would this particular group think about it, right?
Oh, that's cool.
But if you don't have that level of sophistication in there, then you need to tell it that. So think about it like any kind of communication plan that you'd be doing. When you identify your audiences, you identify your goals, you identify who you are in the beginning of the plan and what you're trying to do. Think about it that way. And I think that's a good way to approach it. But I also agree, I use it all the time to just do the simple task of saying, I know I can be verbose sometimes. Hey, can you just please shorten this? Make this something that, and you can tell it to use different style tactics as well. So you can tell it, use smart brevity. You can tell it, use other use AP style, right? It doesn't always get it 100% right, but it does get you a little bit closer. So I think that's another thing that I would recommend too, as you look at it, to think about what are those parameters that you would always use without AI, and what can you put of those parameters into your prompt to make it better?
Yeah. I wonder too, for folks who, I can't remember who it was that was saying that they actually have ChatGPT, for example, blocked completely. In the meantime, obviously, we don't want to encourage anyone to submit any sensitive or identifying information. But, I wonder, are there times where if you're using a personal device and you are not sharing anything that would identify you or the company, could you build and manually create some of those personas and keep them, offline or even, saved somewhere that you end up prompting? I'm thinking out loud here, just in case that's helpful for some people with solutions. I would love to, or I'm watching the Q&A here. So if people have more questions, keep them coming. It's interesting. So our friend Hadley, who's got stellar questions today, this is kicking off the other part of this conversation that's so important, and that is AI in our industry. So we've talked about some of the tangible ways to use it at work and the platforms and tools. What is it going to do to our industry? And her question is very interesting. She says, Hadley says, do you think AI is more important within the communications field? After talking to many departments, it doesn't seem as top of mind for them, but it's a big topic of conversation in the comms field. This is a very interesting talking point here, because I hadn't thought of that, but you could absolutely be right. Maybe we are talking about it more. And if we are, can we all applaud ourselves? Because this is exactly what our industry is best at, is being at the forefront and embracing new technology and looking at ways we can be more productive. So good for us for having these conversations, first of all. But second of all, I would love to know, Bella, I'll start with you. Do you ever worry about the robots taking over your job? I'm being funny, but also serious.
Not really.
Okay. Why is that? Why are you
why?
not worried about it?
Because who understand people?
Okay.
So, and we communicate to people, we deal with people. So I do not believe that AI will take a job of a communication professional.
Okay.
However, you need to understand the tools that we will be working with to have them as your partner in your workday. Because if you do not work them together, that can be a challenge for you as a professional.
Yeah, I think someone in the chat, it was probably Panaki. I don't know how many times I need to say Panaki's name in this session, but he's a gem, so I'm happy to do it. Made a comment about AI, the image part of AI, and also some other design tools, kind of forcing graphic designers to be more creative directors. And I love that analogy for us in comms. I know I hear all the time, and I read it on LinkedIn from all of us all the time. We want to be more strategic, and we're always being asked, people think we're too tactical. We need to be more strategic. And this might be the tool that helps us finally do that. This might be the tool that helps us be more strategic, because we don't have to spend the time doing the initial writing, for example. And I agree. I think there's always going to be an element of humans being the final check on those things. Kristin or Shauna, are either of you fearing the robot overlords?
No, not yet. I think,
Okay.
I mean, I think for me, I think of it like, for those of you who know Mario Brothers, right? I think of it like a power up, right? It's like the power up that like you're running through and it's like, okay, I'm going to just go a little faster today. I'm going to do a few more things. I'm going to jump a little higher, right? Like that's what AI does for us, that I think, you're still going to have somebody who has to drive that and use the remote control and get you through the level, right? Like that somebody has to be behind all of that. And I think that when we look at that, I do think though, we have to think more strategically about what we do that differentiates us, right? What can we do that AI can't do? So, we can take the IT department out for cheesesteaks. We can relationship build, right? We can do those things that AI is never going to be able to do. We can get a pulse on the politics within an organization that AI is not going to be able to do, because they're, to Bella's point, they're people related, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's things like that we will always have to have a pulse on, but I do think it's some of the functions that will be taken over, not the people necessarily, but the functions. And by the nature of some of the functions, I think it's going to shrink the amount of people. But I do think that we need to be strategic in thinking about what are those things that we can position ourselves as that really will never be taken over by AI and technology.
Also, AI is not taking you out for a cheesesteak, so you're going to need humans for that.
Exactly.
So cheers to all of that. I've actually never had a cheesesteak. I'm waiting to go to Philly for a cheesesteak. I got to get like the authentic experience. I think that's the plan. Shauna, this actually goes really nicely into a conversation we had during the planning call for this session. One of the things that Shauna brought up was, AI, is it coming for internal comms professionals' jobs? No, likely not. It is coming for some jobs. And that's something that we need to keep in mind when we are writing, when we are using AI, all of those things. So Shauna, I don't know, I'm not going to say, have you seen this happen so much, but more about AI impacting our industry and other industries. Where do you see that going?
I think I'm really glad you flagged this, because it's been on my mind. I think one of the big challenges that it creates as we're trying to navigate an already distracted workforce is it creates a lot of fear within that audience and the people that we're trying to engage with. And this is true of L&D, this is true of HR, this is not just internal comms. And I'm so sorry, my cat is very interested in this presentation.
We want to actually see the cat as well. Where's the cat?
Okay.
Yeah.
See if she'll come.
If anyone else has pets, we'd love to see the pet. I kicked my dog out of the room.
Let's use this time really well here. Oh, she's like, no, not on camera today. Sorry.
Of course not. Of course not. No, she's like, don't
start talking. She'll come running. But yeah, if you think about how we're already jockeying for time and attention and engagement within those audiences, even if we are not directly impacted on the day-to-day in terms of like fearing for our job security, there are people that are already being impacted, and we're trying to get them to do things. And it's really, I think it's our job to make sure that leaders understand that fear, because they're kind of up in the clouds with the strategy or the board or whoever, and they're not thinking about that end user. And I always think of things from a UX perspective. They're not thinking about that person who's signing off at the end of the day going, I don't know why I bother.
Yeah.
They're just going to can me in 6 months or whatever. And trying to find ways to navigate that is an opportunity for upskilling, of course, for our industry, but it's also it's an opportunity to imbue humanity even more into the things that we communicate and advocate for our employees that we support. So that's really what's top of mind on that topic.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting, I actually just had a conversation earlier this week with someone who part of the company that they work for has a very large customer service aspect to it. And they are looking, they have done some layoffs related to customer service directly as a result of AI being able to do some of those jobs or some of those types of jobs. So this person is in internal comms, and same thing. It's like this person's not worried about losing their job, but they are now involved with layoffs as a result of AI. And I think there are also companies that we know and, or exist in our worlds that are doing layoffs that are saying they're not because of AI, but it might be. And so then we've got this, ethical dilemma as internal comms people about messaging some of that. So I think those are, yeah, like to your point, Shauna, it's just, let's keep it in mind. Like, let's be mindful of the ways that AI is impacting our organization, not just our industry in internal comms. Okay, let me check here. Where are we at with questions? We've talked about ethics. We've talked about policies, my least favorite word. Workarounds. What would we not use? I love this concept of using AI for different learning styles and neurodivergent people. There's been a lot of chat in the Q&A about that as well. So that's a phenomenal way to use that. And I know, Shauna, that was one of your, do we have, okay, let's as our wrap up for folks who might not be using AI regularly. All right, you know what? I'm going to give each of you a choice because of our friend Gabriel who just submitted a question. Okay, here's your choice. Either what's the most creative way that you've used AI at work, or your number one piece of wisdom for someone who is just getting started using this at work. Whoever wants to jump in and go first, go for it.
I think I can start.
Okay, let's go.
One fun way. I never used this one, but I found this morning in my scrolling morning before work. There is an AI tool. I can Google the name before, after, and put in the chat. But if you include a lot of content in this tool, they can create graphics and images for you that I thought was amazing because I'm not good doing that. So I think that could be a really cool way to use for presentations or business cases.
Okay. Love it. Great tip. Shauna or Kristin, you have a tip or a very creative way that you've used AI?
Well, I'll talk about a little bit. Because we have the enterprise version, so we've created some custom GPTs.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
If you are a ChatGPT user and you have not created a custom GPT, I highly recommend it. We have custom GPTs that have our brand guidelines and our brand book in them. So it talks about, here's the language we use to talk about ourselves as a firm. So we can check any of our messaging against that, and it kind of helps to keep us on message. I've also noticed that it started to pick up on some of our company values and other things because it's a learning model, because it's all in the same, again, not that I'm trying to be an advertisement for ChatGPT Enterprise, but it's really nice that it does learn from you. So I've seen it pick up on things like, okay, we have a people first value, and it's telling me within something about a change management initiative that I'm working on, oh, this is also supportive of your people's first value without me ever asking it to do that. Cool. So I think it's, I think being able to give yourself and who you are and who you work for and as much information as you can, if you have that ability to do so, do that. But then also think about using those custom GPTs to start building some knowledge base within the tool that will help you make things faster down the line.
I'm curious, Kristin, did your workplace start using anything other than this enterprise version?
Yes. So we've used for ChatGPT or just in
Yeah.
general with AI.
Both actually.
We have some people who are not using enterprise version because we obviously don't have, not everyone has a license in the company,
Okay.
but we have that. We've used Copilot. We have some other things, but right now a lot of that it's kind of still in the pilot phase. So actually our communications group was the lead group on ChatGPT in the entire company. So for the person who was asking about why does it seem to be communications more than anyone else, we were fighting for it. Our innovation director was fighting for it. And then we had to have that conversation with cybersecurity and IT to make it happen. But so we ended up being on the forefront of it, which was kind of fun.
That's amazing and a great example to set. That's super awesome. Shauna, tip or creative way you've used AI?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to give it a business case as another plug. I think it's such a critical part of our work, being able to justify investment in the different things that we do. And I think it's an important skill set for anybody in the role at any level. You can definitely use AI to generate some components of a business case, but you can also use it to generate arguments against what you need so that you can prepare your presentations and appeal to your audience beyond just, obviously, you might know the person, but like to get deeper into why would an InfoSec officer not want to include ChatGPT in our ecosystem, things like that, so you can be better prepared for those conversations and be more confident during those conversations. And also, if it can pull in reliable data for you, then that's always great too.
I love the idea. This is the takeaway for all of us. If you are looking to create a business case for some AI tool or platform, use AI to create the business case for using AI. That's the wrap up of this whole thing. And you could do that in a way that doesn't share any sensitive information. Oh, for a organization with 400 people in this industry, how would I create a pitch to, whatever. This is, and please and thank you. We're going to say please and thank you to all of the robots, aren't we? I also see all of your chats here about not enough cats. Agreed. There were not enough pets in this session. I will take full responsibility for that. So next time we're going to make sure that all of the pets, there's a contact monkey. There's a theme. There's an animal theme here. I feel like we could bring in a lot more animals. Oh, do we have the cat? Oh yeah. Yeah. Right. See, we've all got our contact monkey mugs, more pets. Whoever from Contact Monkey is listening to this, more pets next year is what we would love. I noticed in the chat, Contact Monkey has put all of our LinkedIn profiles. Please feel free to connect with us, follow us on LinkedIn. My request to all of you is if you are going to send any of us a follow or connection request, to please just put a note about about this session and that it was the best session you ever went to in your whole life, just so that we know where you are coming from, so that it's not a random request. We're trying to get rid of the random LinkedIn requests. I am on a personal vendetta to get rid of random LinkedIn requests. So thank you to all of 3 of our panelists who are all iCology members. If you're interested in iCology, would love to have you as part of our internal comms community. Oh, Panaki, see, best session he's ever been to in his whole life. Exactly. I will pass it on over to Contact Monkey to wrap things up. Thank you to Contact Monkey for inviting us and for an amazing day of learning for all of us in internal comms. Thanks, everyone.
All right, speaking of all the animals and all the cats, I got the Contact Monkey's monkey here. Didn't time fly by? We saw a great session today across the chats, the polls, networking. I want to thank everyone so much for participating. But before we go, we all love a good prize. And Christina, I really want to know who is our first, second, and third place winner today.
Should we tell them?
I want to hear that famous drum roll again. You got to.
We all got different sounds of drums in our heads.
All right, looks like the first place winner is Amanda.
Wait,
Frost.
third.
Oh, here.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, who's our second place winner?
Hadley Blackshear.
Oh, Hadley's been super active in the chats for sure. We definitely were seeing a lot of her comments. And then our third place winner is
Rosiane Toupet.
All right. Nice. Congratulations to all of our winners. And you're the top 3 champions in our participation today.
So yeah, big thank you to all of you who have been a part of CommConnect this year. We know it's been a long day, so if you made it this far, you are an MVP. Together, we've explored the wild, the unknown, and the innovative together, and we hope you're leaving here today with a whole lot of inspiration to do bigger and better things at your organization. Overall, we'd love to know what you thought about the day, so we can make next year's event even better. And we'll be launching a poll again, so you can share your thoughts about the overall event. Again, it'll be in your chat box.
Yeah.
So feel free to share your thoughts and look out for the recording in your inbox later this week.
That's correct. That's correct.
All
But Christina, before we go, before we sign off, I want to pay a special thank you to our team behind the scenes.
Thank you.
Oh no, we have to. I want to say thanks to Maya Tilly. I want to say thanks to Ty. I want to say thanks to Crystal. All of these individuals that you're not seeing on stage with us right now, but a lot of our marketing team has really helped us out.
For sure.
So
takes an army.
It takes an army, and we did well with the battle.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, hosting buddy.
Hey.
Yeah.
So now you can.
Internal communicators face some tough challenges. Creating content takes up too much time and effort. Measuring the impact is a nightmare. And making Outlook work for you? Poof, good luck. Meet ContactMonkey, the easiest way to deliver engaging emails with Outlook or Gmail. Create stunning newsletters in a couple clicks with our email builder by simply dragging and dropping multimedia content or selecting from hundreds of responsive designs. Want fast feedback? Ask away. Employee surveys are built right into the platform. Add recurring surveys, custom polls, and quick reactions to make your comms shine. And you never have to leave your trusted workspace. ContactMonkey integrates with Outlook and Gmail through our add-in or send from our dashboard. Avoid long IT approvals and ever getting marked as spam. Need to prove ROI? Measure your impact with detailed analytics and reporting. From company-wide campaigns to individual employee engagement, you can track opens, clicks, and locations. Spot patterns and know your workforce deeper in real time. Best of all, it's all connected. Integrate with your everyday tools. Sync your email, HRIS, and team chat for more centralized internal comms. Try ContactMonkey today.